My approach, in all humility, since the theme of this is mainly about the business, is to say I'm an editor. While I have been part of an effort to assiduously find new ways to throw my head against the brick wall of hyperlocal business models, my expertise is on the journalism side, and I want to mainly talk about that. I want to call out somebody who's in the audience, Marianne Giordano, if you'd wave your hand. Marianne is the deputy metro editor here at the Times, who has had her hands directly all over our hyperlocal efforts, including the local in Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Brooklyn, and the one that we previously ran in New Jersey, and the one that we currently have in the East Village. And I don't know if she's able to hang around later, but Marianne is the person to talk to if you actually want to know something, as opposed to hear babbling from people like me. I am a huge admirer of hers. So, very briefly, the New York Times' tour through this space began out in the part of New Jersey that I live in Maplewood, Millburn, South Orange, in March 2 years ago. Basically, we and Patch started our hyperlocal efforts simultaneously. We actually sat with each other in a conference room here in this building, playing, how rude should I be? One of the sort of I'll show you mine if you'll show me yours games. And my favorite anecdote from those early launches that we were talking about, how did we each decide to launch our hyperlocal experiments in suburban Essex County, New Jersey. And I don't know whether it was Bill who answered the question or somebody else from Patch, but basically explained, as if you've read anything about Patch, that there is an algorithm that they put together with a whole bunch of inputs. And I'm not in any way mocking this, because I think it's the right way to have done it. Out came these towns as sort of model towns, right size, right level of affluence, right amount of commerce, right number of people, in civic engagement, and so on. And that's how they decided to start in those 3 towns. And then it was our turn to show ours, and we said, well, the Metro editor said that we could use this reporter, and she lives in Maplewood. And quite frankly, that roughly describes how the New York Times has gone about this versus how Patch and AOL have gone about this. For us, this is a journey of discovery, where we continue to believe that there is real value to our organization in figuring out how to cover the news in communities down at the grassroots level in ways that we know we cannot do through the staff of the New York Times. The New York Times is a national and international organization. I hope that you've followed our coverage of what's going on in the Middle East and in Madison, Wisconsin over the last several weeks. That is the heart and soul of what the New York Times is. But the New York Times company operates local news organizations around the country, and the New York Times has New York in its name and needs to come to grips with how do we stay relevant to our readers where they live, while at the same time we are engaged in the increasingly rare act of covering big news all over the world in an enterprising way. So we have decided it's important to keep our toe in this water, and that's exactly where we are. We have a local site in Brooklyn that, as you can see, we operate in collaboration with the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism that's a couple doors down. We have a local site in the East Village that we do in collaboration with the Arthur Carter Journalism Institute at NYU, which is their J School. And right now, that's what the New York Times is doing on a hyperlocal basis. The the insight that I think that we have developed over the couple years that we've been working in this space is that there is a, whatever else there is in abundance on the web, there is a shortage of reporting. There is a shortage of reporting sort of at every level, but there is certainly a shortage of quality reporting about what's going on your block and in your neighborhood and in your community. I would argue that this has been true for a long time, that if there's a weekly paper in your town, how many editors of weekly newspapers are in the room? Okay. If there's a weekly newspaper in your town, it's probably pretty lousy. And it's probably full of press releases, and it probably finds ways to avoid the most important and controversial news because it's sort of the realtors have convinced the owner that it's bad for real estate sales in town. So I would say for a long time it's probably been the case that coverage of your community has been weak. But certainly today it is the case that reporting is in great shortage, which is why I am such a huge admirer of Patch and of the alternative press and others who have found ways and are taking the risk of putting people and money where their mouths are to create local reporting that hasn't existed before. The way we are undertaking to do this is to basically, because of what business the New York Times is in, which is not hyperlocal reporting, trying to experiment with this idea of trying to figure out what is the minimum amount of professional journalism that you can inject into a situation to make real reporting happen. By that I mean people going out and asking questions of people who don't want those questions asked of them and getting an answer and putting it out there for the community in a way that makes sense and is true and honest and not slanted by somebody's baggage that they bring to the table. So we are experimenting with doing that by working with, to multiply our forces through the agency of journalism professors and journalism schools and journalism students who we help train and who we give a format to work in. We work with the schools to go beyond that to bring in members of their communities, the people who live in Fort Greene, the people who live in the East Village or operate businesses in those places or who are engaged in civic life in those places, and give them a forum not just to blather, mouth off, post their press releases, but to dig into issues, and we try to give them guidance in how to do that. We are learning how to train people in doing this. Some of that is from Marianne going into classrooms. Some of it is through the courses that she and others on our staff, people who build blogs, operate blogs, provide legal advice to our staff. These are the kind of people who we have doing online courses and offering them out both to the mom and pop who might be interested in operating a hyperlocal site, or if Gannett wanted to hire us to train their staff. Anybody here from Gannett? We would probably be willing to provide that service to them as well. We're trying to be role models, we're trying to be mentors, we're trying to be teachers. Is this sustainable? I think I don't have answers to many of the questions that Stephen put up on the screen. They're the right questions. My hypothesis is that this is more sustainable if you do it through a combination of cold-blooded business and engaging people as citizens who want to make this their form of civic participation. That if people are willing, in Summit, New Jersey, the same people have been coaching the Little League teams for decades. Their kids have grown up and they don't play Little League anymore, and they still coach Little League. They're not bowling alone. They are participating. And I think that there are people who are, just as you described in Harding, there are people who will do this. Will they burn out? Yes. So then we have to figure out how to work with people in a way that makes them want to continue, or show them how to train their successors. I think another insight that Marianne and I have developed is that there is an element of community organizing to this. If I don't mean to invoke President Obama or various communists of times past, but there is an element of community organizing to this that is different from what we have been trained to do as journalists, but that we need to, those are muscles that we need to develop. There are new kinds of partnerships that we have to engage in, and this is all something that the New York Times certainly sees there being a virtue in learning more about. We will have more things to come on this front that look different from these sites. In the meantime, and I'm done, we have to wrestle with the kind of headlines that we're seeing this week. Massive investment by, I guess, a massive investment by All Britain Communications, WJLA-TV, to create a hyperlocal site in Washington that they gave all of like 6 months to. And I would commend this story that walks through some of the business issues that the failure of TBD raises. Likewise, Alan Mutter, who's a very smart guy who writes about this, he's learned the lesson. That's what he put up today. More hype than hope for the news industry. I think that might end up being true if you look at it from a business perspective. I cannot accept that it's true if you look at it from what our society needs and what people want. And I have enough faith in things, and I'm an optimist enough to think that when there is a need, that we find a way to meet it. I think we're in the process of getting there now. Okay.